Welcome to Blueprint, Expo City Dubai's podcast where we meet the visionaries and innovators shaping Dubai's future. Tune in for candid conversations, discover how Expo City is driving transformation, and uncover the ideas that inspire fresh ways of imagining what's next.
The Asia-Pacific Cities Summit and Mayors Forum here at Expo City brings together more than 1,500 mayors, city leaders and policymakers from around the world. Although it's the first time the summit has come to the Middle East, Africa or South Asia, since it began 29 years ago in Brisbane, Australia, the city that first conceived and hosted this remarkable gathering of urban innovators. I am delighted to welcome the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, Adrian Schrinner, to the Blueprint podcast. Adrian has served as Lord Mayor since 2019, guiding Australia's largest local government, representing over 1.3 million constituents. Adrian is a father of 4 and an aviation enthusiast. In fact, he worked as a teenager in his family's cleaning business to fund his flying lessons, securing his pilot license at just 16 years old. Also, he's perhaps the only Lord Mayor whose official Instagram account shows him samba dancing and talking to friendly koala bears on his morning runs. Adrian, Lord Mayor, a delight to have you here at the Blueprint podcast.
Thanks for having me.
As I mentioned in the introduction, this is one of the largest gatherings of the influential community in cities around the world. If 80% of the world's GDP are represented by cities, it must be an incredibly valuable forum for these people to be convening. Do you find that it creates such a kind of chemistry amongst cities from all over the world that they can work collaboratively to meet their own challenges?
I've found that often cities get along better than national governments get along, and they look for commonalities, they look for common problems, common solutions, and in the end, a friendship between two mayors that can develop at a place like this or a summit like this can be an incredibly powerful thing. And so, I've just seen some examples over the years, and even with our governor from Tokyo, who is here at the summit, I first met her when we had the Olympics in Tokyo, and through that Olympic connection, and we've kept in touch, and we've had some Zoom meetings, and those sort of relationships grow over time, and a summit like this creates those opportunities for mayors to become connected and most importantly to learn from each other as well, because whatever your city might be going through, there's always another city that has already been through that, and they've tried something and they can tell you whether it worked or not, and those sort of practical experiences that can be shared are priceless.
I love that thought about cities and mayors being more collaborative and harmonious than nations. I think that's a really quite defining and heartwarming thought about everyone who's here. I think one of the things that I would like to sort of dwell on is, this is 29 years in the making, this summit. That must prove its value, because I often think in big gatherings and trade shows and conferences, you can have that intensity of the moment, but then how do you maintain those connections? How do you turn discussion into action and, thought leadership papers into meaningful policy?
Well, there's various ways, and we've seen them all happen and come out of Asia Pacific Cities Summits in the past. Sometimes it's an MOU between cities, so two people connect, they sign an MOU, they start cooperating. Sometimes it can turn into a sister city relationship, and Brisbane has 9 sister cities, and
oh, wow.
It's one of those things that provides a very powerful connection, but reciprocal visits can also come out of these things as well, and so there's a whole range of ways, and it could be staff exchanges between cities. There's a whole range of things, and I've seen them all happen, and all of them have value, but really it just takes sometimes the by chance meeting of another mayor or city leader at a summit like this, and then something comes out of it. So the summit itself, we'll come up with a joint statement of intent, But then it requires individuals to go back and to actually start implementing that. And, some cities will do it better than others, but, real action comes out of these things. I've seen it.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's 29 years in the making must prove that. Can I turn to Brisbane now?
Yeah. Please.
I'm not going to test you because I've got the answer, but do you know how many days it is until your opening ceremony on the 23rd of July 2032?
Well, not exactly the number of days, but having said that, on my phone I have a countdown clock. I didn't look today.
Okay. Well, apparently the answer is 2,461.
Well, I could probably check.
Yeah, you could probably check.
No, I won't do that now.
No, but I'm happy if you do, because my question is, reading about it, and obviously I'm from London, so the Olympics of 2012 is still very much in my memory, and I can remember the announcement to the minute almost. It was extraordinary of London winning the bid, but Brisbane, reading about it, there's a sense that this is a golden age of opportunity for Brisbane. There's talk about minimum $17 billion Australian dollars of economic and social impact. This is a well-trodden path amongst cities who see who have the appetite and the belief, and they can harness the whole community. My question is, how daunting is the task? It is, we know that it's going to be incredible and we'll come out the other end, but between now and then, there must be a huge amount to do.
Well, there is, definitely. But it's important to remember the model has changed. And so previously, the Olympics would bounce around between the global megacities. And so whether it's London or Tokyo, LA, Beijing, Paris, these are cities which are already well known as global megacities. And so it got to the point where the Olympics were just going between those cities, and a number of cities were hosting more than once as well. And some of those cities I mentioned have hosted more than once. So the Olympics themselves, the IOC, needed to broaden the market to other cities that weren't necessarily global megacities. And so with the new norms that they introduced, it brought down the cost of hosting the games. And the principle was you can have a regional approach to the games as well. So it doesn't have to be all in one discrete village or Olympic precinct. You can share the venues around a larger area.
Which Paris did quite well.
That's right, yeah. So they started that approach. London had most of the activities in one section of the city, and that was an amazing urban renewal project. But we'll be spreading around the venues over a much larger area. And so that changes the game. But also, the principle is don't build anything for the Olympics, build it because you need it. And so whether it's a transport upgrade, a new stadium, only build it if you need it, regardless of whether you have the Olympics or not. And so that's the principle we've used. So we are getting a new stadium built, but it's because we need a new stadium. And our current Gabba Stadium, or the Wollongabba Stadium, is reaching the end of its life, and that needs to be ultimately replaced with something new. And so by sharing the venues across a larger area, by only building what you need, you're not getting those white elephant projects that have been the source of much debate in the past. And so Brisbane will get some great legacy out of it. Our entire region will get great legacy out of it, but they'll only be things that we need. The other thing is we'll be one of the smaller cities to host the Olympics. And because we're not at that global mega city level, this then opens a market to mid-sized cities like Brisbane. So when we pull it off, and I know we will, I'm confident we'll pull it off and do a good job, other cities will look to that and say, well, we can host the Olympics as well. And so we're sort of pioneering the way for a smaller city, a less known city. And the Olympics as a movement, they've acknowledged that they need to change the model. Otherwise, cities won't bid. And like I said, it will just bounce around between the major global megacities.
So I love that thought of actually you're leveraging the opportunity of the Olympics to build what you need. But then things like hotel rooms, obviously we're in Dubai. Dubai is well known for its hospitality and room numbers and so Is that something, because obviously if you need a metro system or you need a stadium, that's built forever, as it were, or for the long term. But will you be building a lot of hotels, for instance, to then encourage tourism for the Olympics to be a platform to grow your tourism business in the long term?
Yeah, we've identified we need more than 30,000 new hotel rooms, not just in Brisbane, but right across the state of Queensland. Yeah. And so there's a strategy underway at the moment to make sure we get those delivered. But that also is a legacy for our city and the region because, once they're built, they're there. And, that's a tourism asset. That's hard infrastructure that will serve us well. And we know that we'll get a growth in tourism as a result of the Olympics. So hotels are one part of it, and then you're talking about stadiums and transport, that's another part of it. It's all important, but it all leaves a great legacy.
So turning to you kind of today, as it were, how do city leaders like yourself balance the need for fiscal probity and balancing budgets today with the expectation that investment in technology, investment in innovation may require some experimentation, may not have instant rewards? How do you kind of reassure your constituents that you're both running a fiscally prudent city today, but you're being ambitious, innovative, experimental with some of your budget to seek maybe technology solutions that could transform Brisbane in many ways?
Well, there's two parts to that. First of all, the agreement that we reached when we put in a bid for the Olympics was that all three levels of government in Australia would be involved. So we've got the national government, the regional or state government, and then the local government. And so the costs of building infrastructure and hosting the games are shared. And so it's not just a responsibility for the city, there's a shared cost, which is good. So that's financially responsible. We're not putting the city at risk to host this event. So every level of government will put in their share. But secondly, because we've got a lot to do between now and 2032, it means that business as usual is not an option, which then empowers us to actually try new things. Because we know that we may not get everything done if we just take a business as usual approach. We may not get the benefits that we need if we take a business as usual approach. So this line in the sand gives us an opportunity to try things that are different and to develop new partnerships, new models of delivery for infrastructure and a whole range of other things. So it allows us to be bold because we have a deadline that we need to meet, and that deadline can't be shifted. So creative, innovative solutions are a big part of the agenda going forward.
I mean, that must be thrilling from your point of view because you've got a license to experiment, which I'm lucky enough to have been to Brisbane for work a couple of times in my life, and it's a very distinctive city with a real character. How does expansion from infrastructure projects, how do you reassure your constituents or just make sure that the special essence of what makes Brisbane, which is like all cities, that they have a smell almost, they have a look, they just have something that's so distinctive. How do you protect and maintain that whilst obviously wanting to be ambitious and grow the city as much as possible?
Well, the first thing is we won't try and copy any other city. So we're not going to try and copy a previous Olympic, whether it's Sydney or whether it's London or whether it's Tokyo. We're not copying what they've done. It'll be uniquely Brisbane. And so much of that is about the people, the friendliness of the people, but also our amazing natural environment that we're surrounded by. So the nature of Australia, which is so unique, and whether it's our native wildlife, the koalas, the kangaroos, platypus in the creek, these are things that you can only see in Australia and are very, unique. So that'll be a big part of the experience. But also, I think people come to Brisbane because they want to experience that. They don't want to see us turn into just a generic global city. They want us to keep the essence of what we have as a subtropical city with a relaxed lifestyle, but also, a healthy dose of ambition as well. I used to think the biggest challenge that we had was growth and that we were growing at a rapid rate. until I arrived here in Dubai and saw the rate that they're growing here, which is just remarkable. Like I think, in human history and the history of cities growing, like it's hard to find another city that's had sustained growth to the extent of Dubai. And so I don't feel so bad about the growth challenge that we have in Brisbane after seeing what is happening here and how it's been handled and how it's been planned. It provides some inspiration on how we can meet the challenges of growth.
That's very interesting, because you talked about legacy and not building something that just for the Olympics. Obviously, Sydney has the Olympic Park, which is a legacy from 2000. And Expo City, where we are now, was always going to be the legacy of Expo 2020. And I think this is, I hope you'd agree, this is a real life, real world city now now establishing itself out of what was just a 6-month event. And it demonstrates the intrinsic sustainability values of how Dubai look at big capital projects like this.
A lot of people would not remember that Brisbane hosted the World Expo as well. It was 1988. A lot of people see that as, I guess, a turning point in the city where we started looking globally. We started wanting to welcome the world to Brisbane. So that was our first sort of major international event. Previously, the largest event we'd held was the Commonwealth Games, which is obviously a big international event.
Which was when, in the 80s?
That was 1982.
82, yeah.
So 82 was the Commonwealth Games, and then 88 was World Expo.
Yeah.
And the legacy from Expo has been a really positive one. And so our legacy out of Expo was to create a new inner city precinct. It was an old industrial area that was turned into an amazing parkland precinct with a convention centre as well. And so people overwhelmingly see it as a positive legacy. I can see that the legacy of Expo City Dubai is incredibly positive. You can see it because people don't want to see something become a white elephant where there's a big expense and then it's not used for anything in the future. This will become the key to Dubai's growth going forward. A whole amazing new precinct that will leverage the investment that was made for Expo into creating a community of the future. And having seen the plans for what will happen here, everything you need will be here in Expo City Dubai. I think it will set a new benchmark for the definition of legacy.
I hope so. I mean, EY did a study towards the end of the Expo project before it closed, and they predicted $10 billion of sort of GDP enhancement through the whole project of Expo, not just the 6 months, but the construction before and post that. So these things that's a great proof point almost that you plan ahead and you can reap long-term rewards.
And it's only a relatively short time since Expo, but to see the construction activity that's happening here and the plans for expansion is quite remarkable. Yeah.
Lord Mayor, I'd like to just end with a few kind of off-the-cuff questions. Just whatever comes first to mind. So you'll probably say this is too difficult, but if you had to live in any city other than Brisbane, your home, where would you choose and why?
It probably wouldn't be a city. It would be more of a rural environment, and so I'd suggest probably somewhere in Tasmania.
Okay.
So right at the bottom of Australia there, probably somewhere in Tasmania,
but
not in a city.
Countryman at heart.
Well, not really, but I think if I wasn't living in Brisbane, that's probably where I would want to live.
Okay. Yeah. Given that you're a political figure, if you could choose any political figure from history to sit down and have a coffee with and just shoot the breeze, who would it be?
Winston Churchill. And it wouldn't be a coffee, it would be a scotch. And a cigar, maybe.
A cigar, yes. Long into the night. Yes. You're on a plane back from Dubai to Brisbane, and you're sitting next to someone who has never been to Brisbane. What would you convince them to do on arrival?
To get out and experience the Brisbane River, I think. That's one of the things that everyone that comes to Brisbane should do. We have these amazing pathways, river walks we call them, along the river. We have great city cats, ferries on the river, and so it would be that river experience. That's the most important thing and the first thing that everyone should do when they come to Brisbane.
Last question, we always ask this. Is there a motto by which you live your personal life?
I think it's not a particular quote, but it is always try and think for the long term. You know, today's problems, they will come and go. What really matters in 10 or 20 years' time, and that really puts into perspective what you spend your day on. It's easy to get, captured in the events of the day or the latest news cycle that's coming through, but what's going to matter in 10 or 20 years' time? And so I constantly remind myself of all the things I've done today, what is it that's going to make a difference in the long term? And that helps you focus on the right things rather than being reactive.
Well, for a man who has the Olympics looming in his city in 2,461 days, it's great to hear that your perspective is the future, not always today. I feel Brisbane's in very safe hands, and look forward to you being on the world stage and making Brisbane even more famous than it is today.
Oh, well, thank you. And I have to say, being here in Dubai is an inspiration because it is clear there's a long-term plan here. And, what they talked about doing 20 years ago has now happened. And it's very rare that you get that long-term commitment and then the follow-through. And, the future that's planned here is quite incredible. So it is an inspiration.
Yeah. Lord Mayor, it's been a delight to meet you. Thank you very much, and very much hope to welcome you back to Expo City one day soon.
Thank you again.